Right. Greetings, fellow Slayers. Well, time taking another look at another episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 1. And today we're going to be looking at nightmares. Ooh. Buffy has a nightmare about going to the Master Slayer and being choked by him. Her mother shakes Buffy awake, and, as Buffy wakes up, she's excited to be spending the coming weekend with her father. Buffy confides to Willow that she thinks she might have something to do with her parents' divorce. In a class, when the teacher asks Wendell to read from the textbook, he opens it. However, tarantulas crawl out of it. Buffy then sees Billy standing in the doorway, saying he is sorry. Sorry for what? The next day, as Master explains to Colin how wonderful he finds fear, Buffy is nervous about being picked up by her father after school, and her mother calms her down. At school, Willow and Xander are worried about the spiders and want to talk to Giles about it. Giles wonders that he got lost, seemingly in stacks of books. We assume that something that he fears happened to him. Giles has no information on the spiders and suggests talking to Wendell. Wendell explains that he loves spiders. He says that the spiders hate Wendell because Wendell's brother killed his pet spiders when he was off at camp. He explains that the spiders crawling out is a recurring nightmare for him, but this is the first time it happened. In the meantime, Cordelia lets Buffy know about history tests that Buffy has not studied for. Buffy has a hard time even finding the class, and the test is over in what feels like a little time, and Buffy has not even filled in her name. She once again sees Billy outside the class. As break time begins, Laura takes a smoking break in the basement, where she's assaulted by an ugly man saying, "Lucky 19." Buffy and Giles interview Laura at the hospital when they hear about Lucky 19. Outside, they are shocked by the doctor saying that she got off easy until the doctor explains about Billy, who has been in a coma from assault with the same MO. Back at school, the Scoobies are trying to come up with an explanation while a greaser kid's mother embarrasses him in front of his friends. As they are talking, Xander finds out he is in his underwear. As Buffy goes into the library to console with Giles, he says he has forgotten how to read. He has, however, managed to find a newspaper with a picture of Billy in an article. The article says that Billy has been in a coma for a week, which contradicts Buffy having seen him. Giles theorizes she might have been seeing Billy's astral projection. Interesting. Buffy's father shows up and asks to talk to her. Outside of school, he tells Buffy that her parents' divorce is indeed her fault. Furthermore, he claims to be bored by their weekends together and decides to call the whole thing off. As Buffy is crying, he scolds her. Xander and Willow show up in the library, and they realize Giles and Xander's mishaps were all based on their nightmares, which seem to be becoming true for everyone. Buffy finds Billy's astral body, and the ugly man who assaulted Laura finds both of them. As Buffy and Billy run away, the Scoobies decide to find Buffy and explain the situation to her. As Buffy and Billy run away from the ugly man, Billy explains to her that he was responsible for his baseball team losing, and that it is a bad thing to lose at games. As Buffy and Billy find themselves in the cemetery at nighttime, Willow finds herself starring in the Madame Butterfly opera. Willow is overcome by stage fright and runs away. Xander is chasing one chocolate bar after another until he finds one he has not had since his 6th birthday. However, he is soon assaulted by a knife-wielding clown. Back at the cemetery, the Master buries Buffy alive. Ugh. Still chased by the clown, Xander teams up with Willow and Giles. He decides to confront the clown, punching him and feeling liberated. As Willow, Xander, and Giles find Buffy's grave, Giles claims it is his nightmare, letting Buffy die. Buffy crawls out of the grave. A vampire. Bum bum bum. They all decide to wake Billy up from his coma to stop the nightmares. In the hospital, they find Billy's astral body near Billy's comatose body. As the ugly man finds him, Buffy confronts him. After knocking him out, she forces Billy to face him. Billy wakes up and everything's back to normal. As Billy's Little League coach shows up, it's obvious he is the inspiration for the ugly man, that he beat Billy into a coma after they lost the game. He tries to run after Buffy confronts him, but stopped by Giles and Xander and put into jail. Buffy and her father leave for their weekend together. Will then asked Xander if he was still attracted to Buffy as a vampire. Though he initially nervously denies it, Xander then admits, "I'm sick. I need help." Willow agrees. "Yeah, I definitely agree." "Yeah, I also agree." So, yeah. So, anyway, let's take a look at some continuity surrounding this episode. In this episode are confirmed fears discussed in the puppet show. Willow's afraid of the audience and Xander's fear of clowns. However, no reference is made to Buffy's fear of dummies. On the other hand, Buffy has other fears, such as the fear of not seeing her father anymore, having been responsible for her parents' separation, not being able to solve a proof, being buried alive, being weaker than the demon she faces, and being transformed into a vampire. Willow's eventual fate of becoming a witch is lured to during her nightmare. The aria that is sung to her can be read in English as, "Child, from whose eyes the witchery is shining." Willow's fear of appearing on stage returned once more in a dream in the episode Restless. Giles' fear was revealed to be Buffy dying, causing him to consequently fail in his duty of being a watcher. Giles would later be forced to deal with this fear when Buffy died more permanently in The Gift. It's revealed that Willow doesn't like spiders, and she says to them, "What do you know those legs for anyway?" Anya was seeing something similar about bunnies, which frightened her. Why do they need such good eyesight for anyway? And once more with feeling. Buffy's fear of being buried alive comes to pass in Bargaining Part 2, when she is resurrected and awakens in her coffin, having to claw herself out of. Although only a nightmare, this is the first time the Master and Buffy actually meet face to face. They will only meet again in their final battle in Prophecy Girl, then 10 years later in Last Gleaming Part 2. The Master comments that Buffy is prettier than the last one. This might have had a previous encounter with one of Buffy's Slayer predecessors. The Master burying Buffy alive also foreshadows her death at his hands in the season finale Prophecy Girl. It's also the first appearance of a Slaypire, a Slayer who was turned into a vampire, even if this term wasn't used in the episode. But hint of the superior abilities of a creature that combines the strength of a vampire and a Slayer was given when Buffy faced the ugly men as a Slayer and became overpowered while as a Slaypire she was capable to defeat the creature. Buffy's the first of the core Scoobies to appear as a vampire. Willow and Xander have alternate timeline counterparts as vampires in the episode The Wish. This marks the first occurrence of astral projection. Nice. Excuse me. So now let's take a look at the production of this episode. Sarah Michelle Gellar has a phobia as her character, which made filming this episode especially difficult for her. She described, quote, "I have an irrational fear of cemeteries and being buried alive. I told the producer, look, I can't do it. I'm sorry." Their miscommunication, the message never got relayed, and it was 4 in the morning, and they basically made me do it, and I was hysterical. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done for my job. Ever. Some people find cemeteries a turn on. Some people like sex in cemeteries. Not me. I cried the whole way home. It was horrible. It's really hard to be a vampire slayer if you're scared of cemeteries. Yeah, that's very true. This episode features the only time in the series Buffy appears in vamp makeup. Nerf Herder can be seen right inside Willow's locker. Nerf Herder is the band that composed the theme song for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And now let's take a look at some pop culture references. Speaking of Cordelia, we'll ask, why is she so Evita-like? A reference to Eva Peron, whose life the musical and later film Evita is based on. Willow is dressed to play the title character Cho-Cho's son from the opera Madame Butterfly. Aldo sings Bimba Daglioci Panini di Malia, sorry if I butchered the pronunciation of that, as her husband Pinkerton. Before burying Buffy alive, the Master quotes the song A Dream Is What Your Heart Makes. Billy's statement, I had the strangest dream, and you're in it, and you, is a reference to Dorothy Gale's awakening in the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz. And now finally, onto some goofs. The establishing shot of Sunnydale High is from the episode Teacher's Pet, with Willow visible on one of the benches wearing the same clothing as in that episode. The shot was also used in The Pack. So overall, I think this is probably a very scary episode if you ask me, so yeah. So overall, I give Nightmares 4 vampire steaks out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in tomorrow as we take a look at the penultimate episode of the season, out of mind, out of sight. So, until then, see you, everybody.